In this video, we're going to discuss an interview question that was recently asked to me in a React.js interview for a mid-level startup. So this is what we're supposed to build, a password generator with React. Okay, let's see what our requirements are. So the description says that we're supposed to create a web application that allows user to generate passwords based on their preferences. Okay, so as you can see in this image, we have character length, we have some checkboxes to select all the preferences, and then we have this button over here to generate the password. So we're supposed to display a text like this on the top, this just the way that they have done it. And if you see over here, I've opened it right over here, but let's first understand all the requirements. We're also supposed to include a copy button so that we can copy the generated password to the clipboard. Then we're supposed to include a slider and the 4 checkboxes to choose a character. And we're supposed to display a div below checkboxes to show the strength of the password as well. So if it's a good password, bad password, or very strong password, right? And then we have these tech requirements that we are supposed to use React to build the user interface, obviously, because React is a very powerful tool when it comes to optimizing our dynamic application. So, okay, we have this slider over here, which we're supposed to use to change the length of the password. Then let's select some uppercase symbols and probably lowercase as well. Let's generate the password. And there you go, our password has been generated. If we press on copy button, also every time we click on this generate password, you're gonna see we're gonna get a completely different password. So let's click on copy button, and if we go to new tab and try to paste it, yep, you see our password was in our clipboard. And also over here you can see the strength of the password is right now poor. If I increase the number of characters, it's medium, more, strong, very strong. So yep, this is what we're supposed to build. Also, if you haven't yet accessed my complete machine coding interview series playlist, just click the link in the description down below and access the complete playlist where you're going to find more videos such as this one. Also, I'm going to tell you the best practices that you should keep in mind while building an app like this in our machine coding interviews, because as I mentioned in the earlier videos, that it's okay if you're not able to build the complete app during the interview, as long as you have shown the best coding practices, folder structure, variable naming, performance optimizations, etc. Then you'll surely pass this interview. And as you can see over here, they've mentioned all of these points in their sheet as well. Oh, and also if you're looking to learn data structures in JavaScript, I've recently created a complete DSA with JavaScript series on my channel. So you can click the link in the description down below and access that complete playlist. Alright, so the interviewer asked me to open the code sandbox and create a new React.js sandbox. So okay, we're gonna create that. But you can use anything to code this. Maybe you can use VS Code or any other favorite code editor. Cool, so we have this new sandbox initialized over here. And I'm gonna remove everything inside of this div. And I'm gonna clean our styles as well, and just give this container div a class of container. And I'm gonna say hello world. Alright, there we go. Everything seems to be working fine. So let's start with the UI of our app. So what are we supposed to create first? We're supposed to have this text with this copy button. Then we have this slider of character length. Then we're supposed to have 4 checkboxes, then strength, and then this generate password. Let's write it down all of this one by one so that we don't forget. So first of all, password, text, and copy button, character, length. Alright, so these are all the steps that we're supposed to follow initially to create our UI. Let's start with the password text, and I'm gonna name this probably header. Let's create a div, and I'm gonna give this a class name of header. Inside of this, I'm gonna have another div with the class name of title. Right, because here our password will be there, right? So let's add some random gibberish over here for our password. Let's include this things. Yeah, that should be good enough. And below this, we're gonna have a button. So I'm gonna create a button tag. I'm gonna give this a class name of copy btn, and I'm just gonna say copy, right? All right, we have both of these. This obviously is going to take our on-click function. So let's just give this some empty function for now. Okay, let's give it some basic styling first for our container. I'm gonna give this whole app some font family of Arial. You can give something else if you want. Sometimes the interviewers do require you to explicitly use a certain font family, but it depends. And for our container, I'm gonna say background color hash 24232B. So this background color, this is not mentioned in the document, so you can ask it from your interviewer explicitly, right? Now apart from this, I'm gonna give this some padding of 24 pixels. That should be good enough. Let's give some header, some styling. I'm going to give this a display flex so that they both come in one single line. First of all, let me just put color to white so that you can see it better. Yeah, just like that. So display flex so that they come in one single line. And then after that, I'm going to say justify content space between so that we have the space between and they go edge to edge just like we require them to be. Then I'm going to give some font size of 20 pixels, some font weight. Font weight 700. Now I'm going to give this button some styling. So if you see, we have two buttons over here. First is a copy button and other is generate password button. And if you notice, they're kind of same, right? So we can give them some common styles first. So I'm going to target both of these buttons. So obviously right now we just have one button over here. So it's just going to target this. But when we create the other button, it's going to target that one as well. So let's see. We're giving a padding of 10 pixels, some border radius of 5 pixels. And obviously we don't want any border around it. We're going to give some background color, which obviously you can ask from the interviewer if you have no idea what background color is used over here, or you can use some random color. Some color white, text transform to uppercase, because as you can see in our requirement, this is uppercase as well, right? Some font weight and cursor pointer. So small details like this is very important. So if you hover on it, you're going to see we get this pointer icon, right? So this shows that this is a CTA. If you don't put it, see, it's just going to be a normal cursor. So small details like this matter a lot in a machine coding interviews. The interviewer thinks that, okay, you know how to build an actual website. You know what the user expect in terms of the experience when it comes to using a website, right? Okay, now I'm going to give this copy button some custom styles. So because if you remember, we have this copy button class as well over here, right? I'm just give this a height of 30 pixels and font size of 10 pixels, just exclusive to this one. All right, cool. Let's continue. Let's build our character length now. Simply, I'm going to create a div over here with the class name of char length. Inside of this, I'm going to give a span tag with two labels, character length, and the other one will be the actual length. So let's suppose it's 4 right now, right? Oh, sorry, I was not supposed to do this. Let's remove that. I was supposed to put this inside of a label. I think that'll be better. The label for, yep, just like that. And it's not visible obviously because we haven't yet given this some styles. So I'm going to give this a style in just a moment. Below that, we're supposed to create a slider, the input slider that you saw in the requirements. So I'll say input, and this is going to be a self-closing tag obviously. And this is going to be of type range. You see, yep, we got the range over here. Now below this, I'm going to give some min and max to this range. So minimum password will be 4 of 4 length, and the maximum length will be of 20. And obviously we're supposed to give some dynamic value to this, which we're going to do in just a moment when we go on and create our states. And we're going to need a function which is going to be responsible for changing this, right? Which will update that state. So don't worry about it right now. We're going to go into that in just a moment. Also, this is going to be max. So below this, I'm going to create the checkboxes. So let me just write the HTML for this real quick, and then I'm going to go on and add the styles. So for checkbox, if you see, we have this 4 checkbox, right? And if you're supposed to render them, we're going to have to create 4 different input tags. That's not the optimized way to do it, right? So let's just create some dummy data for it, which I have already created over here on checkbox data. And I'm going to give this data to it. And obviously, I'm going to optimize this code as well. I'm not just going to leave this variable over here because this will result in re-renders. So, okay, we have taken this data over here, and inside of this, I'm going to give it, first of all, our div. I'm going to create a div over here. Give this a class name of checkboxes. Inside of this checkboxes, I'm going to render that data. So I'm going to say checkbox data dot map. So map is basically used to render all of this data, this array data, into our UI. So I'm going to say return. I'm going to create another div over here. Give this a key. So key is very important while writing some code inside of this map function, because as you know, it's gonna render each and every element from this checkbox data to our UI. And the only way React is going to differentiate between each of this HTML tags that are being rendered is by using this key over here. So that way, this will optimize our app and avoid any re-renders that come after it. So I'm gonna give this some key of index, comes from over here, I. So this map takes 2 things. First is going to be the item. So let's say I'm going to say checkbox and comma the index, that is the index of the current item. I'm going to have an input tag for our checkbox. It's going to be a type checkbox, and we're going to see if it's checked or not, right? Checked, equals checkbox data dot, oh sorry, I mean checkbox dot state. So first of all, let's understand what this checkbox data is, right? So we have some title over here and we have a state over here. So the title is this title right over here, and state is if it's activated or not. So by default, the state for all of these is false. So as you can see, that is why I've given checkbox state is false. Now below this, I'm going to give this a label, and inside the label, it's going to be checkbox dot title. Okay, so this is giving our error for index. It's because this is index, not I, right? So you might have started to notice that our UI is being rendered in our DOM. Cool. Let's just create this strength and generate password button as well. Then we can move on to style these. I'm not going to create the strength right now. Let's just leave it be. I'm going to create the strength later on. Let's just create the generate button over here for now. Password, right? And I'm going to give this class name of generate btn. And on click, it's going to do something which I'm gonna leave empty for now. All right, looks good. Let's go on and style all of this. So first of all, for our character length, you can see this character length class, I'm gonna give it some styles and the span inside of it. So what am I doing over here? Oh wait, I've made a mistake over here. This is supposed to be character length with the small l. Alright, so you see what's going on over here. So I've given this display flex and flex direction column so that can be rendered from top to bottom. Color is going to be white, obviously, and font size is going to be 20, font weight, some padding bottom, right? And for our span, that is this over here, we're going to give the display of flex so that they come in one single line. Some justify content space between and some padding bottom of 24 pixels. And you know what? I'm going to give this some padding bottom of 20 pixels. So that we have some space. Cool. Let's style our checkboxes now. Alright, so for our checkboxes, we have these class names checkboxes. So the checkboxes will be display grid because we're supposed to display them in this grid-like format, right? And the grid template columns will be auto. The meaning of this is it's going to display into two columns. So 1, 2, right? And the width can be anything, auto. And font family, I think I've already given this, so it's not needed over here. Font size, 16 pixels, some font width of 700 and some color of white. Self-explanatory, I guess. If I click on it, nothing will happen because we haven't yet added the functionality for on change. Now for checkboxes div, if I remove this, you're going to see what happens. You see? Now, since we have this div inside of it, if I try to remove this, you're going to see they're going to stick together, right? So we're supposed to create a gap in between of those. So I've given this display flex and some gap of 5 pixels, some padding bottom of 25 pixel as well for each and every one of these. Now finally, for our generate button, I'm going to give some separate styles such as width of 100%, fonts of 20 pixels, padding of 20 pixels. So you see, we used this common button styles over here and over here as well. And then we added some additional styles by targeting that particular class. Alright, now let's go on to create the states for our app. So I'm gonna create first state for our character length. So I'm gonna use state for this. Now what is a state exactly? So let me just import use state first. So use state comes from React. So import from React. So use state is basically a hook that comes from React which allows us to manage the variables inside of our app. You can say it's basically called the state, but you can call it a variable as well. So what is a state? So state is basically when that particular variable changes, it's going to update your app, right? So if I say const, it's going to give us two things. First, that variable, which in this case I'm going to say length, and another is going to be a function. This is going to be set length. So this length is what is going to render it. So also this use state takes initial value. So initial value can be 4. So if I take this length and yeah, let's say put it over here in curly braces, because obviously in React, if you're supposed to write JavaScript inside of these JSX tag, you can say just like this in curly braces length. So you see 4 is rendered. Now let's use this set length and change this. So on change, I'm gonna say is gonna give us an event, and we're gonna say set length e.target.value. This will change it, and obviously inside of the value we're supposed to give this length. Now, yep, you see it is working absolutely fine. So it's changing this length and it's again assigning this length back to the value for this input tag. That is why this is changing over here. The second state that I'm going to create is for our checkbox data. So I'm going to just take this I'll say const. It's going to give us two things. One is that and the other one is the function. And I'm going to make the C capital because that is what the convention is while writing these use states. So obviously it's going to give us some error because this can't be defined two times. So I'm going to remove this, and as an initial state I'm going to give this to this use state over here. Now we can change our checkbox data if we like. So what are we supposed to change inside of it? We're supposed to change this state. So this state is false. This can be true as well. So if I, let's say, make this true, you're going to see this is now true and this is now selected, right? So that is what we're supposed to do, but we're going to do this dynamically, not by changing the initial state. So let's take this set checkbox data, and I'm going to create a function over here, const handle checkbox change, right? And I'm going to give this function to this on change. Okay, I haven't given this on change, so on change it's going to be this. So how will we know which checkbox we're supposed to change? Let's take the index from our function. So that is from our UI. So over here, where did it go? So over here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass on the current index, right? Now inside of it, I'm just gonna say checkbox data, and I'm gonna target that index dot state, and we're supposed to change that state, right? I'm gonna say this not, but this is not how we're supposed to change a state, right? We're supposed to change a state by using set checkbox data. So let's what I can do is I'm going to create another variable called updated checkbox data, and I'm going to first of all copy all of this data inside of it, and now we can just update this one just like that, and we can reassign back it to this set checkbox data. So I'll say set checkbox data to be this. Now let's see. Yep, it's working absolutely fine. Awesome. I have a very exciting news for you all. So I have created our Roadside Coder community Discord server. And in the Discord server, you all can connect with each other. I'm going to do a lot of tech sessions. I'm going to invite a lot of guests as well occasionally. And we're going to do a lot of fun activities as well. And I'm going to be very active there, so you can connect with me as well. So click the link in the description down below and join the Discord server. The first 100 people to join the Discord server will get an early supporter tag under their name, which will unlock a lot of perks for them. And joining this Discord server is absolutely free. Alright, now let's go on and write the logic for our app. So for that, I'm going to create something called custom hook. Now what is a custom hook? So as you can see over here, this use state, this is an inbuilt hook in React. Right, so similarly, we're going to create our own custom hook. Now, why custom hook? Because a lot of times when you need to add some logic inside of our app, if you write all of the logic inside of our component, it's going to bloat it a lot. But if it's possible to abstract that logic into some other function, or let's say a custom hook, that is a very good practice to follow. And as I mentioned, like if you show all of these practices, that you are aware of writing all of these types of good practices, your interview is going to like that a lot. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to create a new folder for hooks, and I'm going to create a new file called usePasswordGenerator.js. Now, how do you create a custom hook? So it's just like a normal function. So I'm going to say const usePasswordGenerator, and that's it. This is how you're supposed to create a custom hook, right? And I'm going to export it, export default use password generator. Now inside of this custom hook, you can do a lot of different types of things that you cannot do inside of a normal function. So for example, I can use another hook inside of this custom hook, like use state. So I'm going to create a state for our password, and actually inside of this custom hook, we're going to calculate our password. So that is why I've given this name use generate password. So I'm going to create a state for our password as well, and also I'm going to create one more state for handling our error. So error message. Now we're going to create these two states, and then we're going to create a function inside of this hook called generate password. And these are all three things that this hook is going to contain. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to say return password, error message, and generate password, right? And how do you use this inside of a component now? So if we go inside of this app.js, I can simply say const use password generator, and we can import it just like this over here, right? Now we can take out our password, error message and our generate password function. Let's use the password and render it over here. Obviously it's not going to render anything because we don't have inside of this password anything. And let's say if you don't have anything inside of this password, what's the point of showing this, right? So I'm gonna conditionally render it over here. So password, if the password exists, only then render that header. Okay, let's go back to our function. So let's talk about this logic over here for generating our password. So what are all the things that is going to take? Obviously it will take this length of the character, the length of our password, and all of these checkboxes if they are selected or not, right? So it's going to take two things, checkbox data. Another thing is going to be the length. Now inside of it, I'm going to take two things. First is going to be our char set. Now what is a char set? I'll explain you in just a moment. And the other thing is going to be a generated password. So generated password, and this will also be by default as empty. So char set is going to basically contain all of the characters that are allowed in our password, and the generated password is going to be our final password. So below this, if you remember this checkbox data, what does it have? So this has all of these things, and it has a state as well, if it can be false or it can be true, right? So if this state is true, that is this checkbox is selected, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this whole object and push it in some other array. So that is exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to say const selected options. Inside the selected options, we're going to keep all of the checkboxes that are currently selected. So I'll say checkbox data dot filter. We're going to filter out all of these true ones, right? I'll say checkbox and checkbox dot state. So if the state is true, then it will return it inside of this selected option. Cool. Now we have all of these options inside of the selected options, right? Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna say selected options dot for each. I'm gonna run a for each inside of this selected option. Why? I'm gonna take each of the option and I'm gonna put a switch case over here. Now what is a switch case? So switch case takes let's say a number or a string, basically a case, the current case or current condition. So I'm going to say option dot title. So this option dot title is this right over here. So inside this selected option, let's say if these two options are selected, include uppercase letters and include lowercase letter. So this selected option will have both of these objects. Now there are two cases inside of it. One case can either be uppercase, one case can either be lowercase. So for each of these cases, we're gonna perform a separate task. So it's just like if else. So if this is uppercase, then do this. If it's lowercase, then do this. Similar to that. So that is what we're gonna do over here. So if the option dot title is first case, what's the first case? Include uppercase letter. So if we have include uppercase letter as our first case, then what we're gonna do? We're gonna say in our char set, only the uppercase letters are allowed. So I'm gonna simply write char set plus equals all of these characters. Only these characters are currently allowed in our password. And then I'm gonna say break. Right? Just like that. Similarly, we're gonna have other cases as well. Yep, just like that. So there can be other case of include lowercase letters, include numbers, include symbols, and whatever cases meet our criteria, it's gonna keep pushing it inside of this character set. And let's say if we in the end we had selected this and this, it's gonna have all of these characters and these characters, and then we're gonna randomly pick from this char set to generate our password of this many length. Right? Cool. So we have generated our character set over here as well. After this, I'm gonna run a for loop from I equals 0, and it's gonna go to the length. That is the length of the password that we are supposed to generate. In this case, it's 7. Right? So inside of this loop is gonna run 7 times, and each and every time it's gonna pick a random number from the char set. So const random index equals math.flow. Let me just explain this in just a minute. Let me write this out real quick. Math.random multiplied by the length. So I mean the length of char set dot length. So what's going on over here? Let me just show you in our inspect of the browser. So first of all, math.random multiplied by, let's say 20, right? Now what's gonna happen is when we enter it, it's gonna take out a random number between 1 and 20, right? So as you can see, it has given a 10 point blah 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 blah, but we don't want all of this decimal, so that is why we're using math.floor. Now what does math.floor do? So if we provided something like this, it's just gonna remove all of the decimal and just give us 10 over here. So this is how we can generate a random number between 1 and the character set dot length. So if the character set dot length was 20, it would have generated any random number, like let's say 15, 16, 1, 2, like whatever, right? Now we can take that random index that is generated and pick out that character from the char set. So we can say char set and random index, and we can store it inside of our this variable over here, generated password. So generated password plus equals, we can append it inside this generated password, so it will pick a random character from this char set and generate our password. Oops, I think I need to remove this. Yeah, and that is it. This will generate a random password for us. All right, but our work is not yet done. So see, there can be cases like, for example, if this is not selected, right, and we click on generate password, nothing's gonna happen, because obviously how will you generate the password if none of these are selected, only the length is selected? We need to select any one of these, right, to generate a password. So for that case, we're gonna do some error handling over here. So to handle our error, I'm gonna go after this selected option, and I'm gonna simply say if selected option dot length, if the length is equals to 0, then obviously we are supposed to throw an error. So set error message is going to be select at least one option, and the currently generated password will go to null or like empty, right? So we're not going to generate any password, and simply we're going to say return, right? We're not supposed to move forward over here because there's no point since no option is selected, right? But if everything is done, then what we're going to say in the end, I'll just say set password to be generated password and set the error to be empty, right? That's it. That is all we needed to do to create our custom hook and the logic for our app. So let's go and try it out. Okay, I'm gonna go back to our app.js. I'm gonna take this generate password and I'm gonna provide it to our on click. It will take two things, as we already know, checkbox data and the length, right? Okay, let's try to generate our password. Just symbols and uppercase. Okay, checkbox here.filter is not a function. Let's go back to our generate password. Why is it not a function? That means this is not an array, I believe. So one more thing, this generated password. Okay, generated password over here. Yeah, that's fine. Let's try it out. I'm gonna select it again, click on it, and yep, our password is being generated successfully. If I increase the length and generate password, awesome, it's working flawlessly. Let's take care of our error handling. So over here, error handling, right below this, I'm gonna say if the error message exists, then inside of our div, I'm gonna put this error message, and I'm gonna give this a class name of error message. Now, if we don't have anything selected, let's click on it. And yep, you see, we got this error over here, but this is obviously not styled. So let's go to our styles.css, and I'm gonna add the error message class. And now you see, it looks much better. So yep, this is the type of error handling that you should introduce in your applications, and your interviewer will appreciate that a lot. Now let's add the copy logic for our password. So if let's say we have generated our password, let's add the logic for copying it. But before adding that logic, if you're preparing for your front-end interview and you would like me to help you in your front-end interview preparation, just click the link in the description down below and book a one-on-one call with me. We're gonna discuss tips, tricks, I'm gonna give you a lot of resources, I'm gonna design a proper roadmap tailored to your situation, which is going to help you out a lot in your front-end interview preparation. And if you feel like you're already prepared for your front-end interview and you would like me to take a mock interview, I have a mock interview call as well. So click the link in the description down below and book a one-on-one call with me. So I'm going to create a function over here called handle copy, right? And this is the function that I'll provide it to this copy button over here, right? Now, how do you copy this password? So there's something called a browser object actually called navigator, and it has clipboard, and inside of the clipboard we have write text. So we're supposed to write password to our clipboard, right? We're supposed to copy. Clipboard is basically the place where you copy all of this stuff. So now if I try to press copy, let's see what do we get. Yeah, just like that. We got this password inside of our clipboard. Let's add a subtle button click over here. When we click on it, it will show copy, and after 1 second it will be gone. Right, so I'm gonna create a state right over here, use state called copied and set copied. Right, by default this will be false, but when we take this set copied and put it true over here, we want this to show copied. So let me just generate a password over here. This should show copied. So I will say if the copied is true, then say copied, else just say copy. Right, if we click on it, yep, you see we have copied, but we don't want it to be displayed over here all the time. So I'm going to say set timeout, and I'm going to give this a timeout of 1 second, and inside of it I will say set copied false. So after 1 second this will be gone. So okay, I think I'm going to have to refresh this. Okay, let's generate a new password. If I click copy, yep, that is exactly what we wanted to do. It's gonna show copied and it will be gone in just 1 second. Now, if you're enjoying this tutorial up until this point, open your Instagram app right now and search Roadside Coder and hit that follow button as hard as you can, because I'm very active on Instagram, and if you have any doubts, any queries, or just a normal message, you can ping me on Instagram for this. So go on, do it. I'm waiting. What? I'm being serious over here. Open your Instagram app right now and follow me there. Oh, you've already done it? Okay, let's move on with this video. Alright, now next we're gonna create our strength component, which is this one right over here, which will tell the strength for our password. So for creating our strength component, I'm gonna create a new folder called components. Now I could have created that component over in this file as well, but as you can see, this file is already so long, I don't want it to get too bloated. So that is why I'm gonna create a separate folder, like a separate file for a strength component. So I'm going to create a new file called strengthchecker.js. Now inside this file, I'm going to create a component called password strength generator, or probably indicator, not generator. Now this will just take a password. Now since these guys have not mentioned how we're supposed to calculate the strength of a password, I'm just going to simply put it with respect to this character's length. Like if the character's length is less than 4, then it's very weak. If it's less than 8, then it's poor, and so on. Right? So I'm just going to simply say over here, I'm going to create a function actually, first of all, to check the password strength. So I'm going to say get password strength. And inside of this, let's take the length of the password dot length. We could have used this password dot length everywhere as well, but I just thought this will be convenient. I'm gonna just add an if else condition. Like now over here you can add a switch case as well, but I'm gonna show you by adding it by if else, so that later on if you want you can convert it to switch case yourself to practice it. So I'm gonna say if password length is less than 4. Now first of all, let's add a safe check. So if it's less than 1, then I'm gonna say return nothing else. If the password length is less than 4, I'm gonna say return very weak, and so on. I'm gonna add more conditions just like this. If it's less than 8, poor. If it's less than 12, medium. 16, strong. And else it's very strong. Great. So let's take whatever we get from this function. So I'll say const password strength to be get password strength. Now we have the password strength inside of it over here, and I will say if we have nothing inside of this password strength, if it's empty, then we're gonna simply return a empty React fragment. So React.fragment, and obviously we have to import React from React. So import React from React. Now after all of these checks are done, I'm gonna return our strength component over here, which will simply be our div with the class name of password strength. That's better. And inside of it, I'm gonna simply say strength to be span tag, and this will have password strength. And I'm gonna just give this a style of font weight of bold. Alright, I think this should work. Let's take our password strength indicator, go back to our app.js and render it. Let's see. Okay, we have to import it as well. Oh, we are not exporting it, I suppose. Yep. Export default password strength indicator. Now, if we try to import, yep, I think this is imported. Okay, so it's already showing us very strong. I don't know why it's showing that. Let's see what's wrong over here. Oh, let's just add a safe check of an empty password over here. Oh, okay, it's because we are not destructuring it out from over here. Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, now if we try to click on generate password, also it's not going to give us anything. But if we try to generate some password, okay, it's give us this. Okay, but it hasn't given us the strength of the password. Yeah, obviously we're supposed to provide the password as well. Password, and yep, you see we are getting the strength now. If I remove all of this, we're gonna get the error. But if we generate the password, increase the length, yep, it's getting stronger. Great, let's quickly add the styles for this. So I'm gonna go to styles.css and I'll add password strength. I hope that's the class name. Let me just check. Oh, that's wrong. Okay, yeah, now it's fine. So basically what we're doing over here is with 100% and display flex, so that we can just align it on both of the ends by doing justify content space between, some padding bottom and some color of white so that it is visible properly. So if none of this is selected, we won't see the strength, right? Because we have added the safe check over there. Great, and we have successfully created our app, but we're not done yet. Why? Because there are still a lot of optimizations left, which will play a vital role in your machine coding interview. I mean, you can leave this app as it is, but it will not make you different from other candidates, right? So what's the scope of improvement over here? What do you think? Yep, you might be right. We can create the components for a lot of these. Like for example, we have this, if we generate our password, we have this common button component. We have all of these 4 checkboxes for which we can create a component, right? So cool, let's try to go and refactor our code accordingly. So now inside of our components, I'm gonna create 2 files. First for our button component, button.js, and other for our checkbox component, that is checkbox.js. Now for button, simply what we're gonna do, we're gonna just go back to our app.js, just close it. We will take this button over here, go back over here. I'll create this button component. So it will take few things. First, it's gonna take an on-click obviously, and it's gonna take a text or a title you can say, and a custom class if we want to give it, right? Now inside of it, if I say return and paste it, okay, let's take this custom class and give it to this class name. For on-click, we can just provide this on-click simply, which we're gonna send from outside. And for this, we're gonna provide our text like that. And let's export it. So export default button. All right, let's try to go and use this button in our app. So over here, I'm gonna import our button. Oops, button, just like that. Let's see. Yep, this has been imported. Let's try to generate the password. Yeah, you see that's the UI is breaking. So simply it has text, right? So text is going to be this one over here. Class names, for class name, I'm gonna say custom class, and it's going to be copy btn. And for on click, this is going to be handle copy. Let's take this and get rid of this button right over here. And yep, you see, it's working great. Let's take the same button and render it for this big button as well. And also remember, we have the common, this common buttons style right over here. So this will be common for both of these buttons, but we're just using custom class to provide the custom class names for both of these buttons, which these both have. This one has generate btn. So I'm going to take, say, generate btn. Title is going to be this. And the function call is going to be this. Let's get rid of this button as well. And there you go. Our other button also is working flawlessly. Great. So you see how clean our code becomes when we start breaking down our code into components. Now let's go for checkboxes. So I'll just take this complete dev and I'm gonna go over here inside of our checkbox component. Let's create a new component called checkbox. This will also take a title, a state basically if it's checked or not checked, and on change. So on change, whatever we are supposed to do. Now inside of it, I'll say return this. On change, I'm gonna give on change. For checked, I'm gonna give our state if it's checked or not. And for this, I'll give the title. And this key is not needed over here actually. I'm gonna add it outside when we render this. Now let's go back to our app.js. And instead of this code, first of all, let me just export that from over there. Export default checkbox. Now taking this checkbox, instead of this, I'll say checkbox. And let's see what are all the things that it's going to take. It's going to take a title. Fine. Current title is checkbox.title. Okay. We're going to give this an index, like key of index, because obviously it's needed inside of our map. We're going to have this on change. And obviously the current state, which is going to be this one. So just instead of checked, it's going to be state. And let's get rid of this. And this should work. Oh, is it not imported yet? Yep, I think now it's important. Cool. Let's try to do something and generate password. Awesome, it's working. Great. So guys, you saw how optimizing our code by breaking down them into the components makes so much difference. Like it makes our code so much readable and so much clean now. And trust me, your interviewer will also appreciate this a lot. And that is it for this video. If you like this video, give this video a huge fat thumbs up. And if you haven't yet accessed our complete machine coding interview series, just click this card above my head and access the complete playlist.